Abstract. Mirabella, a clumsy student at the Aether Spire Academy, makes a desperate mistake. She activates a forbidden heart leash amulet to win the attention of the school's golden boy, Lucius Vance. But the spell goes wrong, turning Lucius into a theatrical buffoon. Worse, the entire fiasco is recorded by Damian Blackwood, her dark and sarcastic arch-nemesis. Armed with incriminating evidence, Damian blackmails Mira into granting him 5 wishes. What starts as a game of humiliation quickly spirals into a whirlwind of stolen kisses, magical duels, and a secret alliance involving a rescued firefox. As the lines between hatred and desire blur, Mira realizes that the wrong boy might just be the right one. If they can survive the misunderstandings, the jealous exes, and a chocolate fountain disaster. The air in the grand cafeteria of the Aether Spire Academy smelled of roasted pumpkin, ozone, and impending doom. At least, that was how it smelled to Mirabella. Mira sat at a corner table, her fingers trembling as they clutched the cold, obsidian surface of the heart leash amulet beneath the table. It was a forbidden artifact, something she had bought from a shady merchant in the lower magical district, and it hummed with a low, predatory vibration against her sweaty palm. She didn't want to conquer the world. She just wanted Lucius Vance, the golden-haired, sapphire-eyed captain of the Sky Polo team, to look at her without glazing over. Just a little nudge, she whispered to herself, ignoring the warning glare from her roommate, Chloe. Just enough to make him invite me to the winter ball. Across the hall, Lucius was laughing at something a cheerleader said, his teeth sparkling perfectly under the enchanted chandeliers. Mira bit her lip, closed her eyes, and channeled a pulse of raw mana into the amulet. It was supposed to be a subtle compulsion charm. It was supposed to be a gentle psychic tap. It was not subtle. A shockwave of pink energy erupted from Mira's hand, traveled under the floorboards, and blasted upward directly beneath Lucius. The handsome student stiffened. The chatter in the cafeteria died down as Lucius Vance slowly stood up. His eyes, usually a calm blue, were now swirling with a frantic, glazed violet. He turned, scanning the crowd with the intensity of a lighthouse beam, until he locked onto Mira. "Oh no," Mira breathed. Lucius marched toward her, kicking aside a chair with dramatic flair. He didn't just walk, he strutted like an erratic peacock. When he reached her table, he dropped to one knee with a thud that echoed through the silent hall. He grabbed a handful of mashed potatoes from her tray and held it up to his chest as if it were a bouquet of roses. "Mirabella," Lucius bellowed, his voice trembling with an operatic vibrato that he definitely did not possess a minute ago. "Oh, fair maiden of the grilled cheese station. Since the dawn of time, my soul has wept for the touch of your shadow. Will you do me the catastrophic honor of gracing the winter ball with your celestial form?" The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a dragon. Mira wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. She wanted to dissolve into mist. Instead, she heard a slow, rhythmic clapping. She turned her head. Leaning against a marble pillar in the shadows, holding a glowing memory crystal, was Damian Blackwood. Damian was the antithesis of Lucius. Where Lucius was gold and light, Damian was ink and twilight. He had messy dark hair, sharp cheekbones, and a permanent expression of bored disdain that enraged Mira to her core. He was also holding the crystal up, the magical recording interface shimmering with the exact footage of Mira activating the illegal amulet and Lucius's subsequent potato-fueled proposal. Damian smirked. It was a sharp, predatory thing. "Cut," Damian drawled, his voice cutting through the awkward atmosphere. "Beautiful performance, Vance. Truly moving." Mira scrambled up, grabbing her bag. She didn't answer Lucius, who was currently weeping over the mashed potatoes, and bolted for the exit. She didn't make it 10 feet before a shadow detached itself from the pillar and blocked her path. "Going somewhere, spellcaster?" Damian whispered, falling into step beside her as she speed-walked down the corridor. "Leave me alone, Blackwood," Mira hissed, her face burning. "I could," Damian mused, tossing the glowing crystal in the air and catching it. But then I'd have to figure out what to do with this fascinating documentary. The Illegal Love Life of Mirabella. I think Rector Silvius would find it educational. Expulsion is such a harsh word, isn't it? Mira stopped dead. The blood drained from her face. Use of Class A mind-altering artifacts was an automatic expulsion offense. You wouldn't. I absolutely would, Damian countered, stepping closer. He smelled of rain, old books, and something spicy, like cinnamon. He loomed over her, his dark eyes gleaming with amusement. Unless what? Unless we make a deal. He leaned down, his lips inches from her ear. I keep this little catastrophe to myself. In exchange, you grant me 5 wishes. Mira stared at him. Wishes? Are you a genie or a sociopath? A sociopath with leverage, Damian corrected. 5 wishes. Anytime, any place. Do we have an accord? Mira looked at the crystal, then at Damian's smug face. She had no choice. Fine, she snapped. But nothing illegal. Where's the fun in that? Damian winked. Wish number 1. Meet me in the abandoned astronomy tower at midnight. I need to verify a hypothesis. The astronomy tower was officially off-limits due to a structural instability caused by a rogue gravity potion 3 years ago. It was drafty, cold, and illuminated only by the light of the shattered moon filtering through the cracked dome. Mira stood by the rusted telescope, hugging her arms around herself. I'm here, she called out to the shadows. What's the hypothesis? That I'm going to freeze to death. Damian stepped out from behind a star chart. He wasn't wearing his school uniform robe, just a fitted black shirt that emphasized the lean muscle he usually hid. The hypothesis, he said quietly, is about rumors. What rumors? That you're the most insufferable girl in the 2nd year, Damian said, walking slowly toward her. And that you kiss like a dead fish. Mira's jaw dropped. Excuse me? I want to check if you're as good as the poets, or rather, the bathroom graffiti say, Damian said, his voice dropping an octave. Wish number 1. Give me a kiss. You're disgusting, Mira spat, backing up until she hit the stone railing. I'm not kissing you. The rector loves cinema, Damian said casually, tapping his pocket where the crystal lay. Mira gritted her teeth. She closed her eyes tight.
Just get it over with.
It's Damian. It's like kissing a cactus.
Fine.
1 second. Then you delete the video.
We're on wish 1, darling.
4 to go. He stepped into her personal space. Mira braced herself for awkwardness, for his mockery. She felt his hand cup her cheek, surprisingly warm, surprisingly gentle. His thumb brushed her jawline, sending a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold wind. When his lips met hers, it wasn't a joke. It was an electric shock. Mira gasped into the kiss, her hands involuntarily flying up to clutch his shirt. It wasn't rough or demanding. It was slow, searching, and devastatingly skilled. Her mind went blank. The hostility that had defined their relationship for 2 years evaporated in a haze of static electricity and heat. He tasted like dark chocolate and trouble. Damian pulled back first. He looked shaken. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by wide, dark eyes that searched hers. Well, he whispered, his voice slightly hoarse. Hypothesis disproven. Mira stared at him, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. You? Don't strain yourself. Damian recovered his mask, stepping back into the shadows. Go to sleep, Mira. We have class in the morning. The next day, Mira couldn't focus on potions. Every time she looked at the back of Damian's head 3 rows up, her lips tingled. She hated him. She reminded herself of this aggressively. Flashback. 1st year. She remembered the day she decided he was the enemy. It was during a field trip to the Whispering Woods. A swarm of wild pixies, vicious little things with needle teeth, had ambushed her. She had been terrified, freezing up. Damian had burst through the bushes, blasting the swarm with a wave of kinetic energy. He had offered her a hand to pull her out of the mud. Are you all right? He had asked, looking genuinely concerned. I didn't need your help. Mira had snapped, humiliated by her own weakness. I had it under control. Damian's face had closed off instantly.
Right.
Sorry for interrupting your nap in the mud. From that day on, he had mocked her spell work, tripped her in the halls with invisible barriers, and she had retaliated by dyeing his hair neon green. They were enemies. It was the natural order of things. But that kiss. Earth to Mirabella. Professor, Hinkle shouted. Unless you intend to add daydream root to the cauldron, I suggest you pay attention. Classes ended, and Mira marched toward the Phantom Valley, training grounds to blow off steam. She needed to hit something with a fireball. The training ground was a magically simulated valley, currently set to misty moorland. She rounded a large spectral boulder and nearly collided with Damian. Stalking me? He asked, raising an eyebrow. This is a public polygon, Blackwood, she snarled, raising her wand.
Draw.
I need to wipe that smug look off your face. A duel? Damian laughed.
Fine.
Standard rules. First to yield. They moved instantly. Mira was an elementalist. She hurled spheres of fire and gusts of wind. Damian was a kinetic. He deflected her attacks with lazy waves of his hand, redirecting her fireballs into the sky where they exploded harmlessly. He wasn't fighting back.
He was dancing.
Fight me, she screamed, frustrated, sending a chain of lightning arcing toward him. He sidestepped, closed the distance in a blur of motion, and disarmed her with a flick of his wrist. Her wand flew into the grass. Before she could react, he pinned her arms to her sides, not with magical chains, but with a spell she recognized with horror. The Rictus Sempra variation. The tickling charm. Yield, Damian grinned. Never. He activated the spell. Phantom fingers danced along her ribs. Mira collapsed onto the grass, shrieking with laughter, tears streaming down her face. Stop.
Stop it.
I hate you, she gasped, writhing on the ground. Say the magic word, he teased, looming over her, his eyes crinkling with genuine mirth. Yield. I yield, you monster. He canceled the spell instantly. They lay there on the grass, chest heaving, the mist swirling around them. Mira glared up at him, but she was breathless and flushed, and he looked soft. You cheat, she panted. I win, he corrected. Which brings me to wish number 2. Mira groaned, covering her face with her hands. What now? Make me wear a clown suit. No, Damian said, his voice dropping that dangerously low octave again. I want the right to touch you. Whenever I want. No slapping, no biting. You want to what? Research, he said, helping her up. Come here. He pulled her close again. This time, Mira didn't freeze. She leaned in, intending to catch him off guard. As he leaned down for a kiss, panic mixed with adrenaline, and she bit his lower lip.
Hard.
Damian pulled back, his hand flying to his mouth. A drop of blood welled up. Mira was horrified. I didn't mean to. He looked at the blood on his finger, then at her terrified face. Then he threw his head back and laughed. It was a rich, booming sound that made her knees weak. Ferocious, he murmured, wiping his lip. I like it. Just then, a voice echoed across the valley. Mirabella, my star. Lucius Vance was jogging toward them, holding a lute. The heart leash effect was clearly still active. I have composed a sonnet about your elbows. Mira panicked. Hide me? Damian didn't hide her. He stepped in front of her, draping a heavy arm around her shoulders. Beat it, Vance, Damian called out lazily. She's busy. Busy with you? Lucius looked affronted. Why would a sunbeam consort with a puddle of gloom? She's helping me with my necromancy coursework, Damian lied smoothly. Very dangerous. Contagious spirit bacteria. You wouldn't want to ruin your vocal cords. Lucius looked horrified, clutched his throat, and fled. Mira looked up at Damian. Necromancy? Really? He's not the brightest torch in the dungeon, is he? Damian squeezed her shoulder. You owe me. Wish number 3, Damian announced 3 days later, intercepting her on her way to the library. I'm running out of wishes, Mira sighed, though she felt a strange flutter in her stomach. What is it?
A date.
A real one. With who? You? No. With the gargoyle on the roof. Yes, with me, Mirabella. That evening, Mira found herself climbing the stairs to the greenhouse roof. She expected a prank. Instead, she found a blanket spread out under the starlight, illuminated by floating fairy lights. There was a basket. Damian was sitting there, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Sit, he commanded gently. He opened the basket. Blueberry muffins. I baked them. You bake? Mira took one cautiously. It was still warm. She took a bite. It was heavenly. Okay, you're not a complete monster. These are actually edible. High praise, he dryly remarked. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, silver hairpin shaped like a constellation. And this? It's enchanted to keep your hair out of your face when you cast wind spells. I noticed it bothers you. Mira took the pin, stunned silence stretching between them. Damian, Before she could process the fact that he had been watching her closely enough to know her casting habits, a splash sounded from the decorative pond near the greenhouse edge. They both jumped up and ran to the railing. Below, trapped in the freezing ornamental waters, was a small, frantic creature glowing with a dim orange light. It's a firefox kit, Damian gasped. Its internal flame is going out. The water is suppressing it. The protection wards won't let us down there, Mira cried, seeing the shimmering barrier around the rare plants. We have to break it. Together, Damian said, grabbing her hand. Channel your wind through my kinetic focus. We can punch a hole. Mira nodded. She didn't question how he knew they could combine magic. She just felt the surge of his power, dark, grounded, heavy, and poured her own sharp, airy magic into it.
Crack.
The barrier shattered. Damian vaulted over the railing, dropping 10 feet to the ground, and scooped the shivering, steaming creature out of the water. Mira levitated down beside him. The fox was tiny, its fur wet and graying as its fire died. Damian cradled it against his chest, warming it. Come on, little spark, he whispered, his face open and vulnerable in a way Mira had never seen. Don't go out. Mira placed her hands over Damian's, adding her warmth. Ignis, she whispered softly, feeding a tiny bit of elemental fire into the creature. The fox coughed, sneezed a puff of smoke, and its fur ignited into a brilliant, warm orange. It looked up at Damian and licked his chin. Impressive. A deep voice boomed. They spun around. Standing at the greenhouse entrance were High Mage Alaric and his wife, Celeste. The High Mage looked at the shattered barrier, then at the two students holding the rare magical beast. Illegal destruction of school property, Alaric mused. And yet, exquisite dual casting. We had to save him, Damian said fiercely, stepping in front of Mira. We saw. Celeste smiled gently. She walked over and inspected the fox. He will live. You have good instincts, Mr. Blackwood. Perhaps the rumors of your family's dark nature are exaggerated. Alaric nodded. Indeed. Perhaps it is time we reviewed the petition to restore the Blackwood title and the ancestral castle. A mage who protects life is a mage worthy of leadership. Damian stiffened, his eyes widening. The Blackwood name had been in disgrace for a decade due to his father's crimes. Restoring his honor was everything to him. Thank you, sir, Damian choked out. Keep the fox, Alaric said, turning to leave. But fix my barrier by morning. When the adults left, Damian looked at Mira. His eyes were shining. Did you hear that? I did, Mira smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the fox. What should we call him? Spark, Damian said. Or Ogonok. Ogonok, Mira's agreed. And we have to hide him. Chloe will freak out. Hiding a firefox in a dormitory was a logistical nightmare, but it brought them closer. Damian started sneaking into Mira and Chloe's room at odd hours. I'm here for joint studying, he told a skeptical Chloe one Tuesday night, marching past her to sit on Myra's bed. He didn't open a book. He just played with Ogonok, who was sleeping on Myra's pillow, and then, hesitantly, reached out and took Myra's hand. He traced the lines of her palm with his thumb. Still have 2 wishes, he murmured. Don't spend them yet, Mira whispered, squeezing his hand back. The happiness felt fragile, like spun glass, and inevitably it shattered. 2 days later, Rector Silvius summoned Damian. He returned to the common room, looking triumphant. It's done, he told Mira, his face glowing. The papers are ready. My inheritance is unlocked. I'm officially accepted back into high society. Damian, that's amazing. Mira hugged him. For the first time, he hugged her back openly in public, burying his face in her hair. I need to go sign the final seal, he said. Wait for me? By the spiral staircase. Always. Mira waited. But Damian didn't come back in 10 minutes. Damian was running up the spiral staircase, 2 steps at a time, when a figure stepped out from an alcove. Congratulations on the inheritance, Blackwood, Lucius Vance said. His voice was no longer theatrical. It was cold. Vance. Damian stopped. Did the spell wear off? Parts of it, Lucius sneered. Enough to know I don't like you touching what's mine. He raised a hand. He wasn't holding a wand, but a sachet of gray powder. Paralysis dust. He blew it in Damian's face. Damian coughed, his limbs instantly turning to lead. He slumped against the wall, sliding down, unable to move his mouth or body. You see, Lucius whispered, crouching down. I remember everything. The embarrassment. The mashed potatoes. And I know Mira did it.
She enchanted me.
Which means... He smiled cruelly. She's desperate for me. She's probably only playing with you to make me jealous. Why else would she be with a Blackwood? Lucius leaned in close to Damian's frozen ear. She's waiting for you? I'll go tell her you changed your mind. Or better yet, when the paralysis wears off, you'll be so angry, you'll ruin it yourself. Lucius left. Damian sat there, a statue, his mind racing with poison. Was it true? Was Mira still keeping Lucius under the spell? Was this all a game? By the time the paralysis faded, an hour had passed. Damian dragged himself up, his blood boiling with humiliation and rage. He found Mira still waiting by the stairs. She smiled when she saw him. Damian, what took so? He grabbed her shoulders, slamming his lips against hers. It wasn't the gentle kiss of the astronomy tower. It was angry, desperate, and possessive. It felt like an accusation. Mira shoved him back, shock etched on her face. What is wrong with you? Is it true? He demanded, his voice ragged. Is Vance still under the spell? Did you keep him like that? I can't figure out how to take it off yet. I lost the amulet. Mira stammered. But why are you? So you kept him as a backup, Damian laughed bitterly. And you used me to pass the time.
Slap.
The sound echoed through the stairwell. Mira's hand stung. Tears welled in her eyes. You idiot, she whispered. You absolute idiot. She turned and ran. That evening, Mira made a terrible decision. Driven by hurt and the need to prove she didn't care about Damian, she accepted Lucius's, still magically compelled but slightly more lucid, invitation to the Celestial Garden, the most expensive restaurant in the city. She sat there in a silk dress, poking at a truffled quail, miserable. Lucius was rambling about his reflection in the spoon. And so, the spoon represents the curvature of my soul. Fascinating, Mira mumbled. She missed Damian. She missed his sarcasm. She missed Ogonak. Suddenly, the restaurant doors burst open. Damian stood there. He looked like a storm cloud. He was wearing his formal family crest on a velvet doublet, but his hair was wild. Blackwood. Lucius stood up, knocking over a wine glass. This is a private dinner. She doesn't want to be here, Vance. Damian snarled, marching toward their table. Get up, Mira. We're leaving. You don't own me, Damian. Mira shouted, standing up. You don't get to storm in here after accusing me of... I'm trying to save you from this buffoon. Buffoon, Lucius roared. I am a poet warrior. Lucius waved his hand. A gust of wind magic. He was actually quite powerful when he wasn't reciting poetry, caught Damian in the chest. Damian flew backward. He crashed directly into the centerpiece of the restaurant's dessert buffet, a 5-foot-tall, magical, triple-tier chocolate fountain. The fountain exploded. Warm, sticky, expensive Belgian chocolate coated Damian from head to toe. It splashed onto the neighboring tables. It dripped from the crystal chandeliers. Silence fell over the celestial garden. Damian sat in the wreckage of the fountain, wiping chocolate from his eyes. He looked ridiculous. He looked heartbroken. Mira covered her mouth. Then, sirens wailed. The magical patrol. The aftermath was chaotic. The patrol dragged both boys out. Mira was escorted out by her mother, Lady Vanessa, who had arrived via teleportation portal the moment the bill for the chocolate damage was magically registered to the family account. Lady Vanessa was a tall, eccentric witch with purple streaks in her hair. She looked at Mira, who was crying on the sidewalk. She looked at Damian, who was being lectured by a constable while dripping chocolate. "Well," Lady Vanessa said, adjusting her hat. "That was dramatic." "Mom, I'm so sorry," Mira sobbed. "I'm in so much trouble. The amulet. I lost it, and I can't stop Lucius, and Damian hates me." "Hush," Vanessa said. She didn't yell. Instead, she waved her wand, conjuring 2 large cones of pistachio ice cream. She handed one to Mira. Boys fighting, chocolate explosions, illegal artifacts. Vanessa mused, licking her ice cream. "Reminds me of my 3rd year. Now stop crying and eat. Brain freeze helps with heartbreak." Mira sniffled, taking the cone. "It does?"
No.
"But it tastes better than regret." Vanessa looked over at Damian, who was staring at Mira with intense, sad eyes across the street. "He looks like a chocolate-covered tragedy. You like him, don't you?" "I hate him," Mira lied. "Clearly," Vanessa dryly noted.
Come on.
"Let's go home. You have a lot of explaining to do." As they walked away, Mira realized with a jolt of true horror. In the chaos of the restaurant, her bag had been overturned. The heart leash amulet was gone. Truly gone this time. She couldn't lift the spell on Lucius. And Damian. Damian thought she was a monster. By Monday morning, the story of the restaurant disaster had mutated into a legend of mythical proportions. As Mira walked down the crowded corridors of the Aether Spire Academy, she heard whispers that she was a siren who had bewitched 2 noble houses into a war. The most popular version of the tale involved Damian and Lucius dueling on the tables using hardened stale baguettes as swords. Mira kept her head down, clutching her books to her chest. She felt hollow. The heart leash was gone. Lucius was a ticking time bomb of obsessive magic, and Damian. Well, Damian was currently being interrogated by the disciplinary committee. During lunch, a paper crane folded from black parchment fluttered onto her tray. It unfolded itself with a snap. "Aganok is hungry. I'm stuck in administrative hell. Feed him. Key is under the gargoyle doormat."
Dick. It was a cold, pragmatic note. No yolks. No srets.
Just the fox. Mira skipped her next class and sneaked into the boys' dormitory. The corridors smelled of cedar and unwashed gym socks. She found Damian's room at the end of the hall, retrieved the key, and slipped inside. The room was surprisingly neat, dominated by heavy velvet curtains and shelves overflowing with ancient tomes. Aganok chirped from a basket of enchanted embers in the corner. Mira fed him the dried fire beetles Damian kept in a jar, scratching the fox behind the ears until he purred like a diesel engine. "At least someone is happy," she sighed. Her eyes wandered to Damian's desk. She knew she shouldn't. She really shouldn't. But the memory of his smirk when he held that blackmail crystal over her head was too strong. If she could find the crystal, she could delete the footage. She could free herself from at least one disaster. She rummaged through the drawers. Quills, ink, a half-eaten chocolate frog, but no crystal. What she found instead was a leather-bound sketchbook. Curiosity won out. She opened it. The first few pages were studies of magical beasts, griffins, hydras, the anatomy of a dragon's wing. The skill was undeniable. But as she flipped further, the subject matter changed. It was her. There was a sketch of Mira sleeping in the library, a trail of drool on her cheek. There was a sketch of her laughing at a joke Chloe made, her nose crinkled. There was a detailed charcoal portrait of her during the duel in the Phantom Valley, eyes fierce, hair windswept. Underneath the portrait, in Damian's jagged handwriting, was a caption, "Chaos in human form. Beautiful." Mira's breath hitched. He hadn't just been recording her for blackmail. He had been watching her, really seeing her. Looking for something? Mira jumped, dropping the book. Damian stood in the doorway. He looked exhausted. His tie was loose, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He wasn't angry, though. He looked resigned. I was looking for the crystal, Mira admitted, her voice trembling. But I found this. Damian glanced at the sketchbook on the floor, then back at her. A faint blush crept up his neck.
Keep it.
I have the memory of you breaking into my room to replace it. Damian, the drawings. Forget it, he muttered, grabbing her wrist.
Come with me.
We need to talk where the walls don't have ears. He dragged her out of the dorms, across the grounds, and into the forest of shimmering moss. The trees here were ancient, their bark covered in bioluminescent moss that pulsed with a soft, teal light. It was quiet, the academy noise dampened by the magic of the woods. Damian stopped by a stream. He let go of her hand, but didn't step away. I don't have the crystal, Mira, he said quietly. I never did. It was a bluff. I recorded the floor. Mira stared at him. What? I just wanted an excuse, he admitted, looking at the mossy ground.
To talk to you. To be near you.
I've been trying to get your attention since first year, but after the incident with the pixies, you decided I was the villain. So I played the villain. You blackmailed me into a date because you couldn't just ask? I'm a Blackwood. He gave a self-deprecating smile. We're not good at nice. We're good at schemes. Mira looked at him, the boy she thought was her nemesis who baked muffins, saved foxes, and drew her when she wasn't looking. The anger she had been holding on to dissolved, leaving only a magnetic pull she could no longer deny. You are a catastrophic idiot, she whispered. I know. She stepped forward and grabbed the lapels of his blazer. This time, there was no hesitation, no games. She pulled him down, and he met her halfway. The kiss was deep, deliberate, and overwhelmingly real. It wasn't the electric shock of the tower or the angry clash on the stairs. It was a surrender. It tasted of forgiveness and the spicy scent of the forest. When they broke apart, Damian rested his forehead against hers, his breathing ragged. So, he whispered, does this mean I get a fifth wish? Don't push your luck, she smiled, breathless. But maybe. Later that night, Mira sat in her room, staring at her communication mirror. She needed advice. She dialed the rune for her father. General Thorne's scarred, rugged face appeared in the glass. Mirabella? Is everything all right? You look flushed. Dad. Mira started, twisting a lock of hair. Hypothetically, if I had to choose a husband, does it have to be someone from a Golden List family? The general frowned. We've discussed this. Strategy, alliances. But why do you ask? Because, Mira said, her voice firming up. I think I've found someone, but he's complicated. And his family has a reputation. The general sighed, the lines around his eyes softening. Mira, I arrange battles, not hearts. If this boy can survive my training course and treats you with respect, I don't care if his family herds sheep. Just follow your heart, soldier. But keep your shield up. Thanks, Dad. Mira felt a weight lift. She had a chance. The next day was the astral raid training. It was a mandatory exercise for upperclassmen to guide novices into the astral plane to catch a rogue poltergeist. Mira was paired with a group of nervous first-years. Damian was leading a group nearby. The astral plane was a grayscale version of the world, swirled with mist. They found the poltergeist near the library ruins. Circle formation. Mira commanded. Bind it. But as the novices cast their nets, the mist darkened. The temperature plummeted. From the shadows, a creature emerged, not a poltergeist, but a shadow demon. It was a Class 5 entity, far beyond a student exercise. It lunged at Mira, its claws dripping with liquid darkness. Mira, Damian didn't hesitate. He flashed across the astral space, shoving Mira out of the way. The demon's claws raked across his spectral back. Damian cried out, a sound of pure agony, as his spirit form flickered violently. Damian! Mira screamed. She unleashed a blast of pure light, a spell she hadn't mastered until that moment, fueled by sheer panic. The demon shrieked and dissolved. Back in the physical world, Damian collapsed in the training circle, his back bleeding. He looked up at Mira, his face pale but grinning. That was dramatic. You saved me, she sobbed, kneeling beside him as healers rushed over. Wish number 3, he coughed. Go to the Winter Ball with me. Officially. Yes, Mira cried, holding his hand. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Recovery was swift thanks to magical healing, and 2 days later, Damian was discharged. The Winter Ball was tonight. Mira was floating on air, until Lucius Vance cornered her in the library stacks. He looked terrible. His perfect hair was disheveled, his eyes wild and bloodshot. The heart leash was twisting his mind, amplifying his jealousy into paranoia. I heard, Lucius hissed, pinning Mira against a bookshelf. You're going with him. Let me go, Lucius, Mira said, trying to push him away. You're not yourself. I am more myself than ever, he laughed manically. And I know things. I know the Blackwood family is on probation. One scandal, one slip-up, and the High Mage revokes their title forever. Damian will be a beggar. What are you saying? If you walk into that ballroom with him, Lucius whispered, I will tell the press that Damian used dark blood magic to summon that shadow demon in the raid. I'll plant evidence. I'll destroy his family's name before the ink on their pardon is dry. Mira went cold. She knew Lucius's father owned the biggest newspaper in the city. They could ruin Damian. He had worked so hard to restore his honor. What do you want? She asked, her voice dead. Go with me, Lucius smiled.
Be mine. Publicly.
Reject him. Mira closed her eyes. She had to protect him, even if it meant breaking him. She found Damian in the common room, adjusting his cufflinks. He looked devastatingly handsome in a midnight blue tuxedo. When he saw her, his face lit up. Ready, my lady? Mira took a deep breath. She had to make it convincing. I can't go with you, Damian. He froze.
What?
I can't, she said, making her voice cold and haughty. I thought about it. The rumors, my father. I can't be seen with the Blackwood. It's social suicide. Lucius is a safer choice. Damian stared at her. The light in his eyes died, replaced by a wall of ice. You're joking. I'm not. Please, just leave me alone. She turned to leave. Mira. He reached out, grabbing her arm. Magic flared, uncontrolled, raw magic fueled by betrayal and pain. It surged from his hand into her dress, a beautiful silk gown she had bought for tonight. With a rustling sound, the silk withered. The blue fabric turned brown, crinkled, and disintegrated into a pile of dry autumn leaves, leaving Mira standing in her undergarments and the lining of the dress. The common room fell silent. Mira stared at the leaves. The humiliation was total. But the look on Damian's face was worse. He looked horrified at his own lack of control. Damian stammered. I didn't mean. Mira slapped him. It wasn't a hard slap, but it rang through the silence. I hate you, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. Stay away from me. She ran up the stairs, leaving Damian standing amidst the dead leaves of her dress, his heart clearly shattered into more pieces than the foliage. 3 hours later, the Winter Ball began. Mira had transfigured an old curtain into a simple emerald dress. She entered the ballroom on Lucius's arm. He gripped her tightly, his fingernails digging into her skin. Smile, my love, he whispered. Everyone is watching. Lucius was preening. He dragged her to the dance floor, leading her in a rigid waltz. Mira felt like a doll. She scanned the room, hoping Damian hadn't come. Then, the heavy oak doors swung open. Damian Blackwood entered. He wasn't alone. On his arm was Bridget, Lucius's ex-girlfriend, the head of the dueling club, looking fierce in red velvet. The crowd murmured. Bridget looked at Lucius with pure venom, then whispered something to Damian. They walked past the couple, Damian refusing to even look at Mira. Traitor, Lucius muttered. Midway through the dance, Nora, the school gossip, drifted past them. She leaned in toward Mira. Pissed Mira. Everyone knows Lucius is acting weird. He hasn't slept in 4 days. He's talking to furniture. Whatever spell he's under, it's going to snap his mind if it doesn't break soon. Mira felt a surge of panic. The amulet. She had to find it. During the break, Damian approached the punch bowl. Mira saw her chance. She pulled away from Lucius's iron grip. I need the powder room. She intercepted Damian near the ice sculpture. Damian, she whispered. He looked at her, his eyes dead. Go back to your safe choice, Mira. I did it to protect you, she hissed. Lucius was going to frame you for the demon. He threatened your family. Damian blinked. The ice cracked slightly.
What?
I don't care about the reputation. I care about you. But Lucius is dangerous. He's under a curse, and Mirabella. Lucius had followed her. He stormed into the alcove, his face purple with rage. Conspiring with the enemy? After I gave you everything? Lucius, stop, Mira pleaded. You're sick. I am in love, he roared. He grabbed Myra's wrist and started dragging her toward the exit. We're leaving. The dorms are private. You need to learn gratitude. Let her go, Damian growled, stepping forward. No. Lucius whipped out his wand. A blast of wind knocked Damian back. Lucius dragged a struggling Mira out into the winter garden. The garden was covered in snow. Lucius pushed Mira against the frozen fountain. Why don't you love me? I commanded you to love me. That's not how it works. Mira cried. Then I'll make it work. He raised his hand to strike her. Petrificus totalis. Lapidem vincula. 2 spells hit Lucius simultaneously from the bushes. His arms snapped to his sides, and heavy stone shackles materialized around his ankles. He fell face first into the snow. Chloe lowered her wand, stepping out from behind a hedge. Beside her was Damian, his hand smoking. Nobody touches my roommate, Chloe stated flatly. Damian rushed to Mira. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Mira gasped. But we have to fix him. The amulet. I lost it. Damian paused. He looked closely at Myra's makeshift dress. Turn around. What? Just turn around. Mira spun. Damian reached out and plucked something from the hem of her transfigured curtain dress. It was a small, black obsidian stone, caught in the magically stitched fabric. It must have gotten snagged when you ran from the restaurant, Damian realized. It's been on you this whole time, amplifying the signal every time you were near him. Mira grabbed the amulet. She threw it onto the pavement and stomped on it with her heel. Crunch. Purple smoke hissed from the shards. In the snow, Lucius gasped. He shook his head, blinking rapidly. Why am I eating snow? And why am I wearing these ridiculous shoes? He looked up at Mira, then at Damian. Did I propose with mashed potatoes? Yes, Chloe said, taking a picture. And it's going in the yearbook. Lucius groaned and passed out. The chaos subsided. Teachers arrived. Parents were summoned. In Rector Silvius's office, General Thorne stood toe-to-toe with Lucius's father, Lord Vance. Your son threatened my daughter and blackmailed a student. Thorne barked. Your daughter bewitched my son with an illegal artifact. Lord Vance countered. Enough. Rector Silvius slammed his hand on the desk. Mr. Vance was under the influence, yes. But his blackmail attempt was of his own volition. And Ms. Mirabella bringing an artifact was foolish. Damian stepped forward. Sir, if I may. He looked at his father, then at the general. We request a magically binding non-aggression pact. The Vances dropped the threats against my family. Mira faces detention, not expulsion, as she destroyed the artifact voluntarily. And I. He looked at Mira. I will take responsibility for her supervision. The adults argued, but eventually the papers were signed. An hour later, the ballroom was empty. The band had packed up. The janitors were sweeping up confetti. Mira and Damian stood in the center of the vast floor. "We missed the last dance," Mira said softly. "Not necessarily," Damian replied. He waved his hand. A phantom melody, a slow, haunting waltz, began to play from the air itself. He bowed. "Wish number 4, sit with me. Or dance. Just be with me. Until I stop shaking." Mira took his hand. They danced in the silence of the great hall, moving together perfectly.
No clumsiness, no banter.
Just peace. "You have one wish left," Mira whispered against his chest. Damian pulled back to look at her. His dark eyes were vulnerable, stripped of all defenses. "Wish number 5, he said hoarsely. "I wish you could love me. Not the hero, not the villain. Just me." Mira laughed, a sound half sob, half joy. Tears pricked her eyes. "Oh, Damian, that's a wasted wish." "Why?" "Because," she stood on her tiptoes and kissed him. "I already do." Epilogue. 3 months later. "Faster, Blackwood. My grandmother runs faster than that, and she's a ghost." General Thorne stood on the sidelines of the Royal Guard obstacle course, blowing a whistle. Damian was mud-caked, sweating, and dodging magical fireballs. He vaulted over the final wall and collapsed at Mira's feet. "Did I pass?" he wheezed. General Thorne looked at his stopwatch. He grunted. "Acceptable. You may date my daughter. But if you break her heart, I will hunt you down." "Understood, sir." Damian saluted from the ground. Mira laughed, helping him up. Chloe and Zach, a shy boy from Potions class she had recently adopted, were waiting by the gate with towels. They had done it. Final exams, aced. Relationship status, approved. That evening, they sat in the Rusty Cauldron Tavern. Ogonok was asleep on Damian's lap. "So," Chloe said, raising a tankard of butterbrew. "To survival?" "To partnership," Damian corrected. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He slid it across the table to Mira. Inside were not diamond rings, but 2 silver bands etched with runes. Communication rings. "Not a marriage contract," Damian said quickly, seeing her eyes widen. "A partnership. Magical and otherwise. Wherever you go, I can find you. And vice versa." Mira put the ring on. It warmed to her touch. Partners. She leaned over and kissed him, ignoring Chloe's gagging noises.